My name is Suk Burke, and I'm 32 years old. If you're the type who thinks women should fight tooth and nail to save a relationship once a man disrespects them, this probably isn't your story. I didn't fight. I opened the door, handed him a folder, and calmly told the man who thought he was out of my league that he had exactly 30 days to leave my house. And no, I don't regret it. I'm a diesel mechanic. Not the oil change and tire rotation kind of mechanic, but the person you call when a logging truck hauling 80,000 pounds dies on a mountain road at 3 a.m., and every minute it's down is bleeding money. I crawl under cat excavators, city garbage trucks, and fleet vehicles that can't afford to sit still. I diagnose electrical ghosts in harnesses, rebuild transmissions that weigh more than compact cars, and bring dead 400 horsepower diesel engines back to life. I started as an apprentice at 19. By 25, I was running the shop floor and training new techs. By 28, I bought into a partnership. Now I own 40% of a garage that pulls in around $2 million a year in revenue. My personal take, after expenses and reinvestment, is about $140,000 a year. Not bad for someone who never set foot in a college lecture hall. The work is hard on the body, but I love it. The problem solving, the moment when a stubborn engine finally roars back to life, the gratitude from clients who know every hour down costs them thousands. There's a very particular respect in being the person who fixes what no one else can. My financial picture matters here, so let me spell it out. I bought my house in 2019. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, quiet neighborhood, good schools even though I don't have kids. There's a 2-car garage and a third bay I built out myself for my personal projects. Purchase price, $310,000. I put 20% down and locked in a 30-year fixed at 3.2%. My total monthly payment, including property taxes and insurance, is $1,750. The last assessment put my house value at about $425,000. I drive a 2020 Ram 3500, paid cash, no loan. In the bed, there's about 15 grand worth of mobile diagnostic gear and tools for off-site jobs. My personal tools, diagnostic scanners, torque multipliers, air tools, welding equipment, easily add another 60 grand in value. In savings, around 85,000 in cash, 30,000 in my business capital account, and about 110,000 in my retirement account. I'm not rich, but I am rock solid. That stability did not happen by accident. It started the day my dad came home from court when I was 16, looked 10 years older than he had that morning, and told me his ex-wife, my stepmother, had just walked away with half of everything. She hadn't worked in years. She'd never touched a wrench, never spent a night freezing in a shop bay, never run payroll or dealt with a screaming client whose truck had been down too long. But the law doesn't care about that. The law saw 20 years of marriage and divided my father's life in half. We lost the house. He had to sell his business to cover the settlement. He started from scratch in a tiny rented unit and a cheap used truck. He told me 2 things I never forgot. Never marry without a prenup. Keep your finances separate until there's a ring and a legal agreement with clear terms. I took that to heart. So when I met Ethan 4 years ago at a friend's barbecue, my walls were already there. Quiet, invisible, but solid. He was charming. Great smile, good hair, clean button-down shirt that somehow survived a full afternoon of smoke from the grill. He worked as a receptionist and scheduler at a medical imaging center. He made around $38,000 a year, which is perfectly respectable, and he seemed genuinely interested in what I did for a living. You work on those giant yellow machines? He'd asked, eyes wide. Sometimes, I said. Trucks, too. City fleets. Garbage trucks. Buses. That's honestly kind of badass, he laughed. He didn't flinch at the grease under my nails or the calluses on my hands. He laughed at my jokes. He didn't act like talking to a woman in coveralls was beneath him. We started dating a week later. The first year was easy. Good, even. Local dinners, cheap movie nights, weekend trips to the coast where we rented small cabins and turned off our phones. I took him to a mountain spot I'd been going to since I was a kid. No cell service, just trees, a waterfall, and the sound of wind in the pines. This is the most relaxed I've felt in years, he'd said, curled up next to me under a blanket by the fire. He joked about his blue-collar girlfriend in a way that felt affectionate, not mocking. My friends liked him. My dad tolerated him, which is his version of approval. Ethan's parents liked me too. His mom loved that I was responsible and stable. His dad, who worked in sales, was fascinated by the idea of torque specs and hydraulic systems. "Heard you own part of your shop," he said once over dinner. "That's impressive. Most folks your age are still figuring it out." Ethan beamed at that, like my achievements reflected well on him. At the time, I thought that was sweet. Year 2, Ethan moved into my house. That part is important. My house, bought before I even knew he existed. His contribution was $400 a month toward food and utilities. His idea, he said. He didn't want to be a freeloader. The mortgage? All mine. Property taxes? Mine. Insurance, maintenance, repairs? Me. At first, it felt fair. I made significantly more than he did. Covering the big stuff didn't bother me. What bothered me were the little shifts that came next. Ethan's taste started climbing a ladder I had no interest in. He wanted to redecorate the living room, which sounded fine in theory, until he started sending me links. An $80 throw pillow from some influencer's home collection, $45 candles for the aesthetic, a $600 rug he'd seen in a reel. "Babe, it's not just a rug. It's an investment in the vibe," he said, laughing. "You know they make rugs at normal stores," I said. "We could hit Target, Home Goods." He gave me a look like I'd just suggested dumpster diving. "I just want our home to look like we've got taste, you know?" I work with numbers all day. Labor hours, parts, margins. When I see $600, I don't see a vibe. I see a full set of new tires for someone's work truck or 3 months of someone's car payment. Then came the car comments. "When are you going to get something nicer?" he asked one night, sliding into the passenger seat of my Ram and smoothing a hand over the seat like he was checking for imperfections. "This is a 1-ton truck with a custom setup," I said. "What's nicer than this?" "I mean, like luxury, an Audi or something, or a Range Rover, something that doesn't scream job site when we pull up to a restaurant." I remember staring at him and thinking, my truck literally pays for this house, and he was worried about what it screamed. Ethan's social circle shifted too. He got tight with a group from his building, recruiters, sales reps, marketing types. They loved their downtown bars and $18 cocktails, and they loved their stories even more. Ethan started coming home with these little comparisons. Jeremy's boyfriend is a corporate lawyer. They're going to Napa next month. Mark's husband got him a new BMW for his birthday, just because. "Did you see the ring Tom bought his fiancée? 3 carats, minimum." He'd say it lightly, offhand, but the message was clear. Look at what other people get. Look at what I don't have. The intimacy started drying up too. What had been regular, natural closeness turned into excuses. "I'm tired. I've got an early morning. I feel bloated." Always something. Except he somehow had endless energy for his friends, staying out late, stumbling in wired from the night, and smelling like expensive cologne and bar food. His phone, which used to sit face up on the coffee table, started living in his pocket or face down on the nightstand. Passcode changed. Notifications silenced. He'd smile, say, "You know I love you, right?" When I looked at him too long, like he could feel suspicion starting to brew. And then came the night everything inside me shifted. It was a random Tuesday. I came home exhausted, covered in grease after fighting with a hydraulic system that had a company bleeding 15 grand an hour. I wanted a shower and sleep. Instead, I walked into the sound of laughter. Ethan was in the living room, laptop open, video chatting with 2 of his coworkers. I waved, tried to slip down the hallway to the bedroom. That's when I heard it. One of them asked, "So is that guy from the gym still DMing you?" Ethan laughed. "Yeah, he keeps asking me out. I mean, he's hot, but I can't really do anything while I'm living here." "Please," his friend snorted. "You know you could do so much better. We tell you that literally every day." Ethan didn't defend me, didn't laugh it off. He just said, "Yeah, I know," in this soft, almost shy voice that made my stomach go cold. I froze in the hallway, back against the wall, listening to the sound of him giggling with people who thought I was a stepping stone. I didn't storm in. The old version of me might have. Instead, something colder clicked into place. I thought about my dad, sitting in his empty house, looking at the spot where his dining table used to be. I remembered the way he said, "I never saw it coming until it was too late." I wasn't going to be that person. That night, I acted completely normal. I showered, we ordered Chinese, we watched TV. I let him curl up against me on the couch, as if he hadn't just told his friends he was only faithful because of logistics. But the whole time, my mind was somewhere else. Not on if I would leave. On how. I didn't sleep that night. I lay beside Ethan, listening to his steady breathing while my mind replayed every second of that video call. Every laugh. Every "you can do so much better." Every time he didn't correct them. It wasn't the disrespect that broke something in me. It was the comfort he had in entertaining it. By morning, I wasn't angry. Anger is hot, explosive. What I felt was cold, controlled, sharp. The kind of clarity you get right before you pick up a wrench and know exactly what bolt to break loose first. At lunch the next day, I sat in my truck with a sandwich I didn't taste and opened the one thing I'd never touched in our entire relationship: our shared iCloud account. We'd only set it up years ago to share photos. Ethan never changed the password. His text messages synced there. He probably forgot. People do when they think they'll never be held accountable. It took 20 minutes of scrolling for my stomach to drop. A group chat, 6 of his coworkers and friends, outrageously titled King Energy. I opened it. What I found made the video call look like child's play. 4 months of messages. 4 months of subtle digs, then blunt insults, then open strategizing about better options. His friend Leah. Do you actually see yourself with her long term? She's nice, but, you could level up. Ethan. I don't know. I feel stuck. It's the same thing every day with her. Jess. You're too good looking to settle. If you don't experience life now, you'll regret it. Ethan. Facts. Also, this guy at the gym keeps flirting with me. A photo. A gym selfie. He'd taken it after a workout. I recognized the tank top. He'd sent it to them, not me. And the comments poured in. OMG, he's cute. You should see where it goes. Coffee isn't cheating. You need someone who inspires you, not someone who works with trucks. That one made me laugh, a short, humorless sound. If only they knew that my job is the reason Ethan lived in a house instead of an apartment with peeling paint and shared walls. But the worst part? Ethan never said a word in my defense. Not once. He didn't correct them. He didn't tell them to stop. He didn't say he loved me or respected me or even that he was happy. He just agreed. Over and over and over. The last 4 months hadn't been him drifting. It had been a slow audition for a life without me, one he thought would be shinier, more glamorous, more impressive on Instagram. I dropped my phone onto the passenger seat and leaned back, staring at the ceiling of my truck. The betrayal wasn't romantic, it was practical. He was shopping for an upgrade, and he thought I'd sit quietly on the shelf until he was ready to trade me in. By 3 p.m., I had booked a consultation with a family law attorney. I closed the shop early. My business partner, Mike, took one look at my face and didn't ask questions. The lawyer's office was a sleek suite downtown, diplomas lining the hallway. The attorney, a graying man named Bill, listened without interrupting. When I finished, he nodded as if this was the simplest case he'd heard all week. You own the home? He asked. Yes, purchased before the relationship. He's not on the deed? Not on the mortgage? No and no. And he pays what exactly? $400 a month for groceries and utilities, that's it. Bill actually snorted. That's not rent, that's charity. He leaned back in his leather chair. Legally, he's a tenant without a lease. You owe him exactly 30 days' notice, that's it. No legal obligation beyond that. I exhaled slowly. And if he refuses to leave? You call the sheriff, but trust me, people who rely on someone else's roof rarely choose confrontation. He drafted the notice, had me sign it, printed it. $400 for the consultation, but it felt like I was buying peace. Closing that office door behind me was the first breath I'd taken all day that didn't burn. That night, Ethan texted that he'd be late. Some after-hours office event. Perfect. I walked through my house, with my phone, recording every room, documenting every piece of furniture, every tool, every fixture he did not own. His belongings, if you could call them that, fit into maybe a dozen items. A dresser I bought, a bed I bought, a TV I bought, clothes, random toiletries, a few decorative pieces he'd convinced me to get but never paid for. Everything else was mine. By midnight I had taken photos of his belongings, made a full list, backed up receipts proving all major purchases were. Mine changed every password I owned. Banking, email, streaming, utilities removed him. As emergency contact, removed him from my car, insurance, removed him from my roadside plan, secured 2 external hard drives with duplicates, created a backup email folder of all evidence. People underestimate mechanically minded women. We don't panic. We plan. I waited for him to come home. I was sitting at the kitchen table when he walked in, tired, slightly tipsy, smelling like expensive bourbon he didn't pay for. "Hey, babe," he chirped, kissing my cheek. I smiled back. "If I told you tonight was the last night you'd ever sleep in this house," I asked softly, "would you believe me?" He laughed like I was joking. I slid the manila folder across the table. "Open it." He frowned, sat down, flipped it open, and watched the color drain from his face. Screenshots, printouts, timestamps, group chat logs, the legal notice to vacate. His breath hitched. "So, where did you get these?" "Shared iCloud," I said. "You never changed the password." "You were spying on me?" "You were living in my house," I said calmly, "and telling your friends you were too good for me. So yes, I checked." He swallowed hard. "This isn't what it looks like." "It's exactly what it looks like." Then I delivered the line that ended everything. "You have 30 days to move out, starting tonight." His jaw clenched, his eyes glossed. "Are you serious?" "Yes." "But I love you." "No," I said. "You love the lifestyle, the stability, the comfort. If you loved me, you wouldn't have spent 4 months auditioning other people." His expression hardened. "You're being dramatic. You're just a mechanic, Sook. You act like you're—" "Careful," I said quietly. Silence. He looked around the house like it had suddenly shrunk around him. "I'm staying at Jess's," he snapped, grabbing his keys. "You have 30 days," I repeated. "After that, anything left becomes trash." He slammed the door so hard, a picture frame rattled. I didn't flinch. I just exhaled and let the quiet settle. The plan was in motion, and I wasn't stopping. Ethan didn't come home the night I handed him the folder. I didn't expect him to. What I didn't expect was how fast the unraveling would begin. By morning, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Calls, texts, long paragraphs from unfamiliar numbers. The tone of each message shifted like a faulty transmission slipping gears. "Sook, please, can we talk? I messed up, okay? I didn't mean any of what I said." 5 minutes later, "You're overreacting. Everyone vents. That's normal." And then, "You're being ridiculous. It was just words." I didn't respond. Silence was its own language. By noon, he tried a new tactic: guilt. By 1 p.m., he was trying blame. By 2, he was bargaining. I blocked the number, then his backup number, then the one he borrowed from a friend. After the 6th attempt, I put my phone face down and went back to work. The next morning, someone started pounding on my front door. Not knocking, pounding. I checked the camera feed. Ethan stood on my porch in sweatpants, hair wild, eyes red. His fist hit the door hard enough that the frame shook. "Open up, Sook! Stop being dramatic!" Before I even made it halfway down the hall, my neighbor Frank, 72, retired Navy, still built like a man who could bench press a Buick, walked over from his driveway. "You all right in there?" he called out. "I'm fine," I answered. Frank planted himself between Ethan and my house with the calmness of a man who'd seen worse things than a dysfunctional breakup. "Leave," he told him, "or I'm calling the police." Ethan sputtered, went silent, then stormed off like a teenager denied car keys. I made a note to drop Frank a pie later, maybe an apple one. He didn't stay away for long. 4 days later, he showed up at my shop. It was the worst timing he could have chosen. 2 garbage trucks were down. The city was breathing down our necks, and every mechanic was elbow deep in grease and deadlines. Mike, my business partner, intercepted him before he breached the walkway to the bays. Through the office window, I watched Ethan gesture wildly while Mike stood with his arms folded, unmovable. Their exchange ended with Ethan throwing his hands up and storming away. When Mike came back inside, he shook his head. "She seems stable," he said dryly. His version of events started spreading after that. Mutual friends began reaching out, not to support me, to repeat what Ethan told them. "He said you blindsided him. He said you went through his phone. He said it was all taken out of context." I didn't correct any of them. People who want the comforting lie will never choose the uncomfortable truth. But I did take one precaution. I sent the entire evidence file, screenshots, timestamps, the works, to 2 mutual friends I trusted. "Only use this if he starts lying about me," I told them. Both messages back came immediately. "Oh my God, this is so much worse than he said." "What the hell?" "Sook, I'm so sorry." At the start of week 2, Ethan's housing situation began to fall apart. He stayed on Jess's couch until her boyfriend got tired of a grown man sobbing at 2 a.m. and eating all their cereal. He lasted 4 days at Ashley's place before her roommate told him to leave. Then he ended up at his parents' house, 2 hours away, in a quiet neighborhood without nightlife or gyms, filled with people who validated him. "I'm dying here," he texted someone in a message that eventually got forwarded to me. "It's so boring." Too boring, apparently, to confront the reality he'd built. On the third week, he finally came to pick up his things. I made sure not to be home. His belongings were boxed neatly in the garage, labeled with an itemized list on top. His dad and brother loaded everything into the truck. No drama, no confrontation, just cardboard boxes stacked like the end credits of a life he no longer had access to. Later that afternoon, his dad showed up at my shop. He knocked politely and asked if we could talk outside. He looked exhausted. "I didn't know the whole story," he said quietly. "He lied to us. I'm sorry." For a moment, he looked like a father who wasn't defending his son but mourning the choices he'd made. "There's no chance you'd reconsider?" he asked gently. "No," I said. He nodded once, firmly. "You're a good woman, Sook. I'm sorry this happened." By month 1, the online theatrics began. Gym selfies with captions about growth, brunch photos with forced smiles, quotes about resilience and new beginnings. If you didn't know better, you'd think he was reinventing himself after a spiritual awakening. But offline, reality was harsher. Chad from the gym had a girlfriend who confronted Ethan in the locker room. A coffee date guy ghosted him after one outing. His coworkers iced him out after the drama overflowed into their office. With his income and mediocre credit, he couldn't qualify for apartments in our area. Eventually, he ended up renting a room, $850 a month, sharing a bathroom with 2 strangers. A massive downgrade from the $400 he'd been paying to live in my 3-bedroom house with a garage and yard. I saw him once at the grocery store around month 3. He looked nothing like the polished, confident man who once criticized my truck for not being luxury enough. He was pale, gaunt, wearing worn-out sweatpants, hair unbrushed. He froze when he saw me, then turned and walked the other way. I kept picking out oranges. A week later, another message came from a different number. "Sook, I miss you. I messed up. My friends were toxic. I see that now. Can we talk, please? I quit my job. I'm working retail now. I'm lost. I want to fix this." I read it twice, waited 3 days, then replied, "I'm glad you're figuring things out, but I've moved on. I wish you well." Then I blocked the number. I didn't hate him. I didn't even feel angry anymore. What I felt was the clean, quiet relief of a bolt finally breaking loose after hours of tension. Some things aren't meant to be fixed. Some things should be replaced. Month 4 passed quietly. For the first time in years, the house felt balanced. Not silent, just honest. I hadn't realized how much tension I'd been carrying in my shoulders until it was gone. The absence of his footsteps, his sighs, his passive-aggressive comparisons. It felt like someone finally shut off a machine that had been rattling in the background for too long. I filled the freed space with small things I'd forgotten I loved, leaving my tools spread out on the dining table, cooking whatever I wanted without commentary, singing terribly while cleaning up after work. Nothing extravagant, just peace. Then life moved forward. Around month 5, I met Liam. He came into the shop because his truck was leaking coolant, and his attempt to describe the problem was so terrible I had to fight not to laugh. "It's like a hissing, spitting fluid thing," he said, waving his hands in circles. "You mean a cracked hose," I said. "Right, definitely that." He was a nurse, calm, gentle, with the kind of humor that didn't need to be loud to land. He paid for his repairs without flinching at the cost, thanked me 3 times, and left a tip in the shop's coffee fund jar even after I told him he didn't have to. No flirting, no pressure, just a good interaction. 2 weeks later, he came back, this time intentionally, with coffee. "I didn't want to be weird," he said, standing awkwardly next to my toolbox. "But I thought you might like caffeine that doesn't taste like diesel fumes." I laughed, harder than I'd laughed in months. We didn't rush anything, just coffee, then a walk, then dinner where we talked about things that mattered. His job, my work, the patients he cared about, the engines I brought back to life. He mentioned an ex-girlfriend once, briefly, with the kind of closure and emotional maturity that didn't come with baggage attached. No drama, no competition, no lingering bitterness. It was refreshing. I didn't realize how starved I had been for normalcy until I finally had it. Meanwhile, Ethan's life kept appearing in my periphery, not because I sought updates, but because people love broadcasting someone else's downfall. I heard that he'd tried dating again, 3 different people, and each one fizzled within weeks. One woman found out he lied about his income. Another discovered his room was the size of a walk-in closet. A third realized he'd photoshopped his pictures to hide the circles under his eyes. His social circle began collapsing too. The same friends who pumped him full of false confidence had their own drama unravel. Jess got fired for padding her expense reports. Ashley's long-term boyfriend left her after discovering she'd been lying about her age on dating apps. 2 others moved away. That entire group chat, the one he clung to like gospel, imploded. By the time month 6 rolled around, Ethan was living in a cramped room, working inconsistent hours, and looking for validation anywhere he could get it. His final attempt to reach out was almost anticlimactic. A message from yet another new number. Please, just one conversation. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I didn't realize what I had. I stared at it for a long minute. Then I typed, "You realized it. You just didn't value it. Take care of yourself." Blocked. I didn't feel triumphant, or cruel, or vindicated, just grounded. 2 weeks after that, Rob's wife showed me something she found online. Vanessa, one of Ethan's loudest hype women, the one who told him daily he could do better, had posted an update. She was pregnant. The father? A guy who'd been cheating on her for months. The comments under her post were a mix of congratulations and thinly veiled pity. Life has a way of returning the energy you pour into other people. I stood in my garage that evening, wiping grease off my hands, thinking about how differently things could have gone if I'd ignored that first warning sign, if I'd let myself be guilt-tripped, if I'd convinced myself it would get better. But it wouldn't have. Some relationships rot slowly and quietly, the way rust eats metal from the inside. You don't notice until the structure collapses under pressure. Ethan didn't ruin my life. He showed me what I'd been tolerating. I locked up the shop, grabbed my jacket, and headed out. Liam was waiting for me outside, leaning on his freshly repaired truck, smiling like he had every reason to. "You ready?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Let's go." And for the first time in a very long time, I walked toward something, not away.